Okay, good. So last month we did 3 classes, right? I'll just go over stuff that we've done last month. Yeah, so we did the pencil sketching, then loose florals, and then we did the more refined fine art kind of painting. So one thing, like Varsha said, not just the compositions, but what we often with flowers, we can practice compositions also, and also just converting lines to graphic. So the graphic flower is seen everywhere, like something that I'm wearing right now also is a graphic. And it's relatively easy to translate lines in floral shapes into um, a graphic form. So it's a little freeing because you just need to indicate that it is a flower. You don't even have to worry about making it look specifically like the flower that it is. Because here, our allegiance is more to make the composition or the graphic look attractive or appropriate in that in its context. So, for example, if you've all seen Avatar, one of the best things about the movie is visualizing animals and or flora and fauna in something outside of the earth. So the animals have got 6 legs over there. The flowers are fluorescent and they've got so many different things happening to them. So that is taking stuff that we live with and then adding elements or removing elements and changing a few things and making it look unfamiliar, and therefore then making it seem outside of our known world. So graphics is pretty much the same. You can modify a lot of things and make them look more um, like I said, appropriate to the context. So if you want to make a surrealistic painting, for example, you could take something like a rose and paint it with candy stripes or something like that. And then that changes the context or makes it appropriate to a context that you are illustrating. And this is exactly where uh, I guess fantasy art would come in. Also, children's literature, sometimes even the pictures like from Dr. Seuss books, the stuff that he imagines in his illustrations are all stuff that a starting point is somewhere familiar, and then it can go off to any different direction that you want, depending upon the context. So if Dr. Seuss's books were supposed to be horror stories, then those what are they called? Ruffala trees or something like that would probably have even spiky leaves rather than having a puff on top of it. Very beautiful. So when we're making these illustrations, I want you to expand or keep one door of exploration open. That when we are making these illustrations, you should be thinking, okay, I'm making this line right now, but I could also turn it to a different line, or I could turn the proportions into something like that, because that will help you to explore graphic flowers and compositions in your own way, in your own direction. It is important to bring in your personal taste and aesthetic into this so that it becomes something, it becomes unique to your taste. So I've shared a bunch of flowers. Some of them are flowers that we will make, but I felt that it's important to also show you what not to start with. There may be some favorite flowers that you might feel you want to convert into graphics or incorporate them into composition, but they are generally a trap. So you should try and avoid them. Let me share the whole list and then I'll speak about them individually. Okay, so to start off, when you're looking for reference images, look for 2 types or three types of images of the same flower. Look for an image of a close-up of the flower and also its growth pattern. So here we have this thing, I think it's called Sankrant Vel. I mean, it is called Sankrant Vel in Marathi, but I don't know what it's called. It flowers during Jan and Feb all over India. So you see how the construction is more or less, especially in this single vine. You have a line coming straight down and the flowers are clumping at different points. And then you have a close-up of the clump. This way you can study the structure and then draw it accordingly. Then you have something like this. This is a Thunbergia. You will often see this in a big space, in a large, there would probably be a big arch from where the flowers are all plunging down and the leaves are on top. In this picture, you can see the leaf structure also, the construction, and also the flower. Then we have roses. This is fairly simple. And so when you're making a composition, you need a variety of flowers. So you need to pair forms. It's good to pair different kinds of forms, like circles with triangles, or squares, or change that a little bit. What you should avoid making, at least in the beginning, are flowers like these. They don't have a very defined structure. They just look like a blob with scratchy lines. And this graphic can look rather disturbing unless you master that scratchy line and make that scratchy line look interesting. I'll explain to you as we go along. The other one is the next one. The flower in this nasturtium looks very good, but the leaves are circles. So its outward form looks great in a photograph or in a color image, but in a graphic form, this might look a little odd. So these are the flowers that we should go for. Something that is regular, a petal pattern that is repetitive, predictable, and also gives us ample opportunity to fill this with texture. Again, a regular texture, predictable texture, not like a vague, scratchy line. Even something like this, limited number of petals, but large petals which have interesting texture and color, plus the interplay between the flower, shape of the flower, and the buds is very beautiful here. Now, the leaves of this flower are quite wimpy. So we need to minimize all the wimpy characters and display all the strong characters. Over here, you have beautiful leaves, lovely buds, and a beautiful flower structure as well, plus a very interesting center, which can make the texture look very engaging. So I'm going to use this, I think this is a peony, um, the rose vine, and also drop in a little bit of the Sankrant veil. So the structures that I have are long flowers, small flowers with interesting leaves on a vine, and large flowers with again interesting leaves, but these would come from the bottom. Oh, today my phone is working. I don't know what happened yesterday. Okay, so when working with composition, we have to work with form, which is the overall shape. So the shapes that we normally encounter with flowers are certain silhouettes. You will have a silhouette like this. You might have a silhouette like that. You could also have a silhouette like this or a silhouette like that. So we have to do an interplay of shapes. Then you have textures. So some of the textures can be just dots or circles like the texture in the center of flowers. Then you have things like these anthers. Sometimes you will have petals which have got lines and dots in them, like lilies. All these would be textures. So when selecting flowers itself, you need to look for these. Then among shapes, you can also have um, the silhouette. So this comes to the outer shape made by the flowers. Here we've got, it's pretty much the same thing. I'm giving you two different um, words for pretty much the same thing. There are overlaps. But with silhouettes, I want to focus on the leaf structure. So you have something like these. These could be petals or leaves. You could have something like these. Or you could have something that is very busy. You could have something that's multi-pronged, etc. All of these are just etc. So as we go along, I will add to this list if need be. Now we need to, when we're making a composition, we need to balance out all these elements. So we've done this before, but I'll go over this again. So you start off with the um, plotting the most dominant. So the dominant element should be in fewer numbers and largest usually, largest or brightest. Brightest color. Brightest or most attractive color. Now, when I say bright, it doesn't always mean like a bright red color or something. The peonies that we're going to make are actually peach, but in their lightness, they remain bright on the in this whole selection. Then you will have the I would hate to call them mediocre, but they are at the medium level. Sorry, one second. And then you have fillers. or secondary. Let's say this is secondary. So all these are at medium. They are, they're more than the dominant. In number. They are medium in size usually. And as far as color is concerned, it can be any color, because over here, because of its size, even if it is similar color to the dominant element, it won't really matter, just because its size and its numbers will distribute it a certain way. So I'm not putting it over here, I'm just keeping it blank so that you realize that it's probably irrelevant. Fillers are maximum in number. Smallest. And color can be, again, anything, brightest, medium, or smallest, least bright. So of the colors of the flowers that we have right now, let us identify which is which. So let's draw the peony. I'm going to start it off with a circle. The peony on top. Let me show you how I'm doing. Here's the circle that I'm visualizing. The center of the flower is not the center of the circle. The petals on the further, on the top right are further away, so they're going to be seen flatter. And the petals that are closer, sorry, not flatter, longer. And the petals that are on the lower left are going to be shorter. That's how I'm going to draw them. And then within this also, there is an internal circle, which is also not right in the center. Okay, so I'm going to start off with something like that. This is going to be the overall shape. And then the internal petals, center of the flower, and even the center of the pollen. So this line is extra, this one. And these two, this is what I drew on screen, 1, 2, and 3. And this line I'm giving myself for the internal line of petals. I'm using a number 1 petal to draw. Number 1 pen. Sorry, today my head is in a different place. Okay, always start drawing from the bottom or petals which you are going to see overlapping other elements. So I'm going to start off with simplifying the center. I don't have to draw all the 125 pollen in the center. So I'm going to try and simplify it. These are all being seen from the top, and here I'm going to show them a little further along the edge of the circle. No, I could have gone even further. And inside this, so this line I've made, I could have gone onto the second circle also. But I'm going to make a smaller internal part over here, which is just from the bottom, and draw some straight lines here. Now I'm going to draw petals going outward and keep the shape simple and replicable. On the side again, I'm going to keep it like this, but I'm going to bend the line inward. Here it's outward, and here it's inward. Now for the front, I can do the same shape. There are no, yeah, or I can turn it around like that. I like this. I'm making the back of the petal and making the frill on the inside so that I'll create an illusion of overlap of the petal turning inward. Now the outer petals are again the same. So keep looking at the flower at every point so that you don't, at least in the beginning, you keep making lines which look like they make sense. I'm repeating that same structure for the petals on the in the foreground. And then there are some petals coming down also. I realize that my internal circle has become really small. It could be a little bigger also. But this is not bad. Now I can use a thinner pen like a 0.05 and also make some lines. Now when we are making lines inside the petal, you can use your discretion and decide on how many lines you want to make. You need to avoid making lines without, I wouldn't say without thinking, but without pausing. So you could be tempted to do this. So you've drawn this, and then this is what many people end up doing. So it turns out to be a very thoughtless pattern because there is no thought given to the impact of a texture like this. So I would advise you to divide this space as evenly as you can and put only those many internal texture lines as can fit while distributing the space between the lines evenly. So it's balanced. So when I have to make graphics like these, I make a lot of rough illustrations and try out these textures, literally like this. I would probably make, so I would make the internal part like this and make these close by. And now I'm not sure whether I want to make the lines from these pollen stalks coming down towards the center as we see them. So I've not made them over here, but I would make this illustration in rough to figure out if that texture makes sense. And I think this looks too busy. That little extra space is fine, but I might also then color in the spaces in between these stalks to see if that makes sense. Add more stalks or more pollen heads on the top to see which looks better. Now, if I were to expand this graphic and make it like 5 feet tall, I can do all of this. It would make it look, the picture look really, really interesting. But maybe at 5 centimeters, maybe it's not worth it. So it's important to know at what point you should make it complicated and how much you need at the size that you are making finally. Okay, the next part is the silhouette of the leaf. So here the leaf is quite a complicated pattern. It's like this, then it's got 3 prongs over here, and then also 3 prongs here, and 3 prongs here. And our leaf shape goes around like this. That goes up further. Now, seeing as how complicated the leaf is, we will definitely just make a few of them and maybe not even its whole structure. So it helps to keep this leaf part of the dominant group. Now, as far as roses are concerned, which is going to be our medium section, look at the structure that I've sent you. The roses are all pointing downward, but we can easily flip that and make them point upward by turning our book upside down and drawing, keeping it at an angle such that when we draw it, our flower looks straight. So see, where is the base of the flower? Okay, let me show you what I mean. Okay, if I were to draw a line parallel to the base of this flower, it would be somewhat like this, because the flower is pointing towards the bottom. So I'm going to keep my book at this angle. That's the angle I've kept my book. And then go ahead and draw the flower at that angle. See? So I'm keeping my book at this angle so that my base matches the angle that the flower is in. The edge of my book is going to be at that angle, and I'm going to draw the flower the way I see it, so I don't have to flip the. Sometimes you won't be able to flip the picture around. So this is the angle, and here I have an oval. Now this flower is at a secondary flower, it's not as dominant. So I'm going to change the petal shape. I'm not going to make it too complicated. So we have a central section, and then we have petals coming out from all sides. This is important to draw because you need to know which petals come in the foreground, which are the overlappers, and then draw the elements which are overlapping. All right, so pretty much like this flower, we will draw simple petals which have an overlap, which have a fold. The tips of the petals are folding outward. And again, because these flowers are secondary, we should not be putting too many details on this. Make a shape like this so that it resembles that twirled inside. Simplify the petal shape behind. And then you can just make 4 or 5 petals like these. If you want, you can make a flap on the inside or just leave it like that. That's fine. Now the leaf structure on this is very beautiful. There are usually 3 or 5 leaves to each stalk. This one has 5, I think. I'm just trying to see whether they are receding or increasing in size. I normally land up making only 3 because that serves our purpose. For those of you who are not comfortable with drawing serrated leaves, draw the shape of the pencil, draw the shape in pencil first, and then start making a zigzag line where the zigging line goes a little outside like a tangent and then comes back onto the pencil line. There are far more serrations on a rose leaf than I'll end up making. But again, this is trying to get the point across briefly. So though these leaves are complicated, they're not as complex as the peony. Okay, now for the Sankrant wheel. So here we have 3 options. We can draw the flowers in full bloom. It's a 4-petal flower with a very tubular structure. Or we can draw teardrop buds which are pointing upward, or we can draw these drooping flowers which have bloomed and are now going to fall off the vine. We can draw all 3 or this in stages also. So right now I'll draw all 3 and then you can choose which ones you want to draw. Whenever you choose an element like that, you'll see that each of these you can see in 3 different ways. You can see them pointing towards you, foreshortened, at an angle that's a 3/4 angle and completely on the side. It's a side view of all these, except the ones that are drooping down. Those, I suppose, you can draw only on from one side, and that's fine. So we'll try to draw a clump like this with as many variations in direction as possible or orientation. So first, let's create a structure. We will draw 1, 2, 3 dots from where we'll have a flower going towards this side, flower going here, and flower coming towards us. Just above this, we will draw buds like these. And then below these, we will draw now. The center of the flower almost looks like a square. So we have a full square here. We have a slight rectangle, and on this side, we have a very thin rectangle. This helps us to visualize the orientation of the flower. The flower that is facing us has got a very cute split petal on top. The petal on the side is just seen like this because it folds in. And the petal at the bottom, you can see almost like a ribbon curl down. And you hardly see the base of the flower, which is hidden behind this. The petal on this flower on the side, you will see the petal towards the right, sorry, on the sides folded, but not their result. The petal on top is split and the bottom is curled very distinctly. You can see that, and you can see its structure coming down. And the last one, you can see this beautiful curl. You hardly see the petal on the further side. See the petal on this side, and you might also see its curl. And this one is curling even more. Bulk this up with more bulbs and keep the buds in different places so that in spaces between you can fill up the buds. You can also fill some of them up coming towards the bottom. And then for the drooping flowers, I've deliberately shown this angle so that we can show the same things. Draw a nice flute. And we can also show a little bit of some of these anthers coming downward. So whenever we have structures like these are multiple things, you should show some kind of connection. So we'll show some line between these and also some leaf-like structure. Now, as you can see, this is a very, very bulky flower. So we can pick and choose which ones we want from this whole structure by going to the second picture where you can see how the clumps are distributed. Some places you just have the drooping flowers, some places you just have the buds, and in a few places you will have clumps of all of them together. Okay, once you're comfortable with this, we can ink these, but we won't ink the rectangle inside because that one is converted into almost like a circle, but without its ends. And then as you go to the side, you don't even complete the circle on the further side. This will help us create dimension. Now, at any point, if you feel that you want to simplify the flower, you have every right to do that. So in this case, now we can draw a few lines on the top of the bud to create texture. So you can make a further simplification of these graphic flowers. And even make something like this that is indicative of the flower drawing. And remove all of these and just use the grouping flowers. Okay. Now, after you have done this, now you have to put all of these together. So I'm going to make a small pattern over here, but you can choose a different paper or make it on a separate sheet if you want to. I'm going to put tape.
Are we going to paint it?
No, not today. We
Okay.
just make the structure.
Okay.
Okay, so when we are making a structure uh, for the composition, here all the rules of composition come into play. So in this space, I can probably make one or two dominant flowers. Then I can make a few medium flowers in between and then fill up the space with smaller flowers. I think this is too tiny for the shapes that I have made. But let's see. Yeah, I start off on a compromise. This is going to become rather larger. Okay, this gives us enough space. So these are our elements, and we need to fit them within this space, more or less maintaining the size. So as far as possible, avoid composing anything that is one below the other or one next to the other. Any elements, especially of the same category, coming next to each other usually does not work. So work on placing stuff on diagonals or some kind of angle. So let's start off with one dominant flower over here. And the other one, instead of going straight to the next other corner, I'm going to place it a little lower. Now, right now, I'm making a very generic design. But if this were to be a print, I will have to create a print repeat, a tile. If this is, say, a backdrop of other stuff that I'm going to put on it, I'll have to then decide, um, design the location of all these elements based on if there is text coming or whatever. So let's just assume this is going to be one, maybe a card or some kind of pattern which is finite. It's not going beyond these borders. With these two, now the third one I could make a little close to the edge over here. Now, even if these are the dominant flower, I don't have to make all of these also the exact same size. I could make them just a little smaller or larger. Now I have spaces in between from where I can throw the vines. At this point, I can also choose whether I want to use the rose alone and be done with it, or I want to use the rose and this Sankrant veil together. The Sankrant veil comes from the top, so I can't show it from the bottom, and the rose comes from the bottom. So I can always throw the rose in through these gaps, and then I can have that Sankrant will come down from here, from the gaps. This can be the rose, this can be the Sankrant veil. I can have it come even down here. So your lines need to have some logic or some flow to them. Now, if I draw a rose here, then I draw a rose here, and maybe a few drooping flowers here. That's as much room as I have. I can draw a rose here or a leaf structure here. Then I can draw this peony facing towards the left, this one facing towards the right, this one facing towards the top. I can have its leaves coming like this. The peony is complicated leaves. And the Sankrant will peeping below, from below that. I can completely convert that Sankrant veil, and instead of these drooping flowers, I could just make the buds drooping as well. So this is what I mean by keeping your options flexible. Depending upon the complexity of design, you can pick and choose from any of these what elements you want to add. So I can add that bit over here, a little bit over here, some leaves. Now, whenever you are putting these elements, look for blank spaces and the overall line. So here I have a line coming this way, I have a line coming this way. I should not make a leaf structure going and attacking any of these lines. I should allow for a flow. So if there is a nice space around your elements, a negative space around your elements, it almost feels as if you are leaving room for just your breath to go through, and you're not making everything very claustrophobic. There are going to be places where lines are going to converge and you won't have space left, or not too much, or there's going to be overlaps. That is perfectly fine. But when you see too many lines that are going at 90 degrees to each other, clashing with each other, that can create a sense of claustrophobia. Now, having said that, it is not a universal rule that that should not be the case. That is my preference, and my preference of design works with a little bit of room around elements to breathe. So if you want to, and I sincerely urge you to do it, change that a little bit. Deliberately make lines in places that you're not um, even sure about, and see how that looks before you decide on what your individual style might be. Otherwise, I'm just going to be making clones of me, which is not the intention. So every place I'm making these shapes in such that my the main flower gets enough room and attention. I could also make some overlapping leaves like this. And then around them, I could make these vines. Now, some part of the vine can go behind the peonies as well. I have all the little spaces then can be filled with these rose leaves. At any point, if you feel that you are unsure, there's very little space, you don't know what to do, not enough space to put in a flower, or too much space, but you can't, where you should be putting a leaf, but putting a leaf won't be enough. Anything like that is happening, leave it blank. Don't try to fill it. And secondly, in places like these, especially from the bottom, you might feel that nothing is emerging other than the main leaves or stalks. There you can bleed the design out onto the outside, so it looks more complete. So bleeding is when you have the edge of your picture and part of the design is incomplete because those elements are sticking out of the border. That is called bleeding. Now, when this design has to be printed, I will keep an extra space of about a centimeter or so. I will make a line to, or just print marks to mark the ends of the printing, but I will bleed the design outward a little so that when the design is printed and cut, I should not have a slight white edge over there. All right, let's start sketching now. So start off with sketching the main elements, or the elements you know for sure are going to overlap all the other elements. Let's go back to our reference. Okay, since I have more room here, I can change the nature of my line. It does not have to be um, a firm line. Now, at every
Aditi, can you bring your paper in focus, please? It's a little out of focus.
oh, you know
Yeah.
what? That happens because of my hand. I'll change the angle
Mhm.
just a little bit. Hopefully, that should work. So I was saying at any point, if you feel that maybe just one round of flowers or petals is enough, you can reserve, you can wait, make the rest of the flowers, see how much space they're occupying, and then decide on that second rung of petals. Very often with design, I equate this to, sometimes when, at least in the case of, in my case, this second opinion with doctors is concerned. There was one time when my dad was injured, and we went to the first doc, and he said we need to do a certain procedure immediately because that is standard. So, how I'm equating this is making our flower with two rows or two rungs of petals is the standard procedure. But an application has changed over here. So my dad said, let me think about it. And he went home and thought about it for 2 days. And he healed without that procedure. So the time given to think about whether or not he should do it allowed him to heal. It wasn't too serious, and he did not want to go through any medical procedure. But that is the time you need to take to figure out whether your design needs that next rung or not. So don't push yourself into following a standard procedure that you yourself have set. There's no such thing in design or aesthetic which cannot wait. All decisions can wait till you are absolutely sure. Because once a line has been drawn, then regretting it makes no sense. So use a rough sheet if you feel like it. Modify the standard design also a little bit if you feel like it. Like in this case, suppose instead of adding a fold to the top, I add a fold to the side. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a modification that I felt would be appropriate in this place, and it works. I cannot overstate the value of pausing. I remember in the 80s and 90s, there was a very common comedic trope about artists. But these were, of course, fine artists who stand in front of their canvas for days thinking about where I should make the next line. And I remember there was some joke about some fellow who comes to the artist studio and he sees he's just painted one line and he's just standing and looking at it. And then he comes the next day and he's still not made anything, and he's just standing and looking at it, and he wonders, what is this artist? Must be really faltu. Kuch nahi kar raha hai. So that pause, I guess, I don't know which other stream requires that. I have a feeling that many creative fields must be able to appreciate that pause, so that you know what you are doing, um, and whether what you're doing is the right thing to do at that point or not. So that's also the difference between artists and designers. Unfortunately, designers do not have the luxury of that pause, because they have to churn out designs on a deadline. So they work on formulas. And to some extent, this is a formula that we're working on, making a composition. This is not uh, this is not what I would term strictly fine art. But in that, it is still more creative than current graphic design uh, requirements would be, because in that they will have developed a formula to convert this design into 50 different variations. So you could, how can you take this and make variations of the peony, which can be used as a continuous pattern, or just as a single motif, or a running pattern at the bottom. So that it can be used for textile printing, for say wallpaper design, gift wrapping paper design, everything. Okay, now come the roses. I'm leaving my peonies like this because they look quite nice the way they are. And I'm moving to the roses. I've added one extra petal to the top. Okay, so I want you to see how the difference in the lines work. Here we have a lot of lines concentrated in the center. Here we have almost the same number of lines, but they're distributed, making the flower very bulky. This is the balance of line and form that we're looking for. So what shapes, what textures, and what silhouettes. So they should be balanced all over the place. If we had a flower over here, if we had more petals and I had drawn the lines, then this itself would also look very busy. This would look very busy also, and all of it would just look like some Uttar Pradesh design. I have to apologize for my Uttar Pradesh hate, but ever since my trip to Agra, I can't get it out of my system. So we want to keep that at a minimum.
What did you see over there, Aditi?
Oh, I'm being very unfair. I was taken to this one place to buy these chappals, some leather chappals, that are very famous in Agra. And I suppose that's because the people we were visiting, this was, I mean, I'd gone with a troop for some national games at that time. My daughter was competing in the national games. So we went to this huge warehouse which had lots of leather chappals, and I was stunned by the fact that there wasn't a single pair that I could buy because it was full of all the reject shapes and colors and color combinations and compositions that I could think of. And it was like I was inserted into design hell for a little while, like almost as if somebody said, you know what, 15 minutes of your life, we want you to see what will happen to you if you use the wrong color in the wrong place in your professional life, or you miss a deadline. What kind of hell we will throw you into after you die. So there are shelves which are like 8 feet tall.
Dire reaction.
The
But yeah,
chappals were all like stacked, catch, everything. And he kept pulling them out. So he pulled out the first design. I thought, oh my God, hideous, didn't like it. Then he pulled out another one. And I was seeing everybody else saying, oh, ye kitna acha hai, and let's pick it up. And they're picking up by the dozen. And I did. So I thought, am I not seeing this? Am I seeing something completely different? What are these guys seeing? So they had chappals which had a shape that would make your foot look most unflattering. Your foot would look either too fat or flat. Then the heel versus the base ratio was off. The heels were crooked. I mean, everything that could go wrong in those chappals, and they were all wrong. And not like 19-20 wrong, where you say, "Acha, theek hai, I don't like this pink, it could have been a little darker or whatever." It was not that. It was just everything wrong. Then they had some special embroidery on it, which was the special part, that these were hand embroidered things. And the amount of work they had put in it was tremendous. But they had chosen all the reject colors that you could think of. Everything. I mean, I didn't even click pictures over there because I thought if I have evidence of this, it'll stay somewhere in my library, and one day my phone will throw up these memories, and then I will see that, and then again 15 minutes I'll be in hell again. So the motifs were the wrong combination. If they had flowers, all were big flowers. Then the colors, they decided, okay, you never know who might like what color. Let's put all the colors in everything. Then color bhi hai, then we'll have gold also. If we have gold, we'll have silver also. Now you think, okay, let's do this for 50% of the chappals. No, they would put on all chappals in different way, because then design badal gaya na. So us design mein bhi hona chahiye. And I thought, okay, wait a minute, who is doing this thinking? I cannot believe this. This is the devil himself. So then that was one experience. Then somehow I just ejected myself from there. And then he took us to some place where they had some bedspreads or something like that. Again, the same thing. It was like the brother of the person, like the devil and his brother decided, यहाँ पे चप्पल की दुकान है, यहाँ पे bedspread की दुकान है. So we did that. Then we went to a clothing store, and I just felt, like in how movies they show this whole there's a shot when your face just goes back and the camera just, it's like a realization. And I thought, oh my God, I'm in hell. This is Uttar Pradesh. And I died. So after that, it was very difficult for me to find something good on that particular trip. So I realized that was the one trip that was meant to be bad. And I've been panning Uttar Pradesh so much since that trip, I can't believe it. And ironically, you have things like the Taj, and you have places like Lucknow and all that are there in Uttar Pradesh, which I'm sure have wonderful stuff. But mere naseeb mein nahi hai. That's all I can say. So
Because no, there's a lot of this kind of stuff that you see in Rajasthan also, and that's why you have the Anokis of the world. You see,
oh,
and that's why you end up spending a little more, because the design guys have really put their mind to stuff.
yeah. No,
But
we
if you
had
go
this
to
experience.
Sanganer and all that, oh boy, you'll get very good fabric, but terrible prints.
I
No,
don't
no,
know
we had
how.
a similar experience in Kanchipuram when we went to buy sarees for my son's wedding.
Yeah,
Like the
same.
sarees are cheap, the silk is good, but the designs are so horrendous. And then you realize why you go to places like Sundari Silks and all, because there is someone who's actually putting thought
Exactly.
into the color and composition
Yeah.
and otherwise it's just
This
like
is this
one designer started something, he just started randomly.
Yeah.
And
Kanchipuram
it's like,
sarees, are so pretty, and they
yeah,
either the border is wrong for the
yeah,
body,
exactly,
or the body is wrong for the border. I don't know what it is.
exactly. Or
They're
then
so
they
exquisite, and they just mix the wrong colors, and you just cannot find the color you want.
Or then they'll have these horrible big fat motifs, that are so ugly. There was a Paithani sari, I remember one beautiful deep blue, midnight blue kind of color. And on the border, they had about 18 lotus, all of different colors.
Oh
Every
my
single possible
God.
big, fat, ugly lotus. It was, and
So
I'm like,
this
this
is
poor
just a
weaver must have
design
spent a
issue
year
in
weaving
every
this damn
state.
thing, and it
Every
is so
state.
ugly.
The-
So
yeah,
ugly.
this
And this
is from,
bechara guy, like a year or year and a half, he must have spent weaving that sari.
yeah.
Such an ugly sari, oh God.
So in some
But
places,
yeah.
I think philosophically, it was, I mean, I try to identify this, where the mistake lies, at least to my mind. One reason for this is they are designing for somebody they don't know. They have just decided that this is koi to hoga who likes yellow, but then the same person might not like pink. So chalo isme thoda yellow dalte hain. So they're trying to be efficient
No.
and they're trying to please everybody, which never works. So when I used to make my products, I used to have so many people who'd say, why don't you do this way and that way? And I tried a few things, and big mistake. I didn't like those designs at all. And I remember I kept them out at exhibitions, and I think I deliberately wasn't even selling them. So when people would come to the stall, I would show them the stuff that I liked because I could sell it, and the other stuff I just left. And I realized that was right in the beginning that, oh, 1 second. Oh. I don't know who else is coming. Sit on that. Sorry. Yeah, so I was saying that at that point, I realized that I needed to design for myself. And there would be maybe 1% of the population in the world that might understand or get what I have to do without any explanation, without any changes. And I gambled on that. And by the time I was at Kala Ghoda, I realized that all that 1% live in South Bombay. That's it. Or they come to South Bombay and they understand what I'm trying to say. Not a single person would come and say, Madam, aap isme color kyun nahi dalte hai? I did not have to give any explanation. It went very well. Okay, let's
Put an approach into make something that you like, because first of all, if whether it sells or it doesn't sell, you have to endure it.
correct.
You have to endure it for the while that it is with you. So you may as well endure something that you can look upon, enjoy, appreciate, develop on, whatever. And
Correct.
the other thing, you attract the audience that you want. So you don't have to give an explanation to that audience. Somehow,
Exactly. Yeah,
So I don't need to, okay, I am minimalistic, that's fine. But you like minimalistic. That's why you come and you looked it up. So
correct.
those who don't like my work will just simply say, it's okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And also, yeah, so then I realized when I was giving a talk once at a college, I said that, like when people say, I want to be my own boss, I realized that I was trying to be my own customer. And that made all the difference because I had to just please myself as a customer. So I would use everything that I made. I wasn't making it for some phantom person that I don't know anything about. And that made all the difference as well. So you don't have to do any special advertising.
True.
The genuinity of the product also comes out, no? So then
Yeah.
people understand कि ये ना इस दिल से बनाया है.
Correct.
So that's why it sells also.
No, but people also have different sense of aesthetic, like, you know. So there is no, like they say, there's no accounting for taste.
No, no.
Correct.
That's, my husband, every time I design something, no, he says, I don't like this, but you know what? Somebody else might. So
Oh,
he's like, so maybe that somebody else will really appreciate it, but I don't quite appreciate this.
so strange. But ठीक है, I guess. That's a
Yeah.
no?
Yeah, it is. It is.
So like I have friends who have like really jatak sarees, you know, which I wouldn't be seeing dead in those sarees.
हाँ.
But then they seem to just buy that kind of, and they seem to like it. So then, like, I'm like, okay, fine, I'm doing this.
Yes,
That-
yes. There is
Yeah.
an audience.
Huh.
Everything has an audience.
Correct.
The comment that I get is तुम्हारे बड़े बुढ़े जैसे taste हैं.
That is also very true.
Because you go in for earthy colors and all that, no?
Yeah, yeah. Simple designs, are the colors, all that is old people's choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Or is that's the understanding?
Okay, now at this point, at least in my design, you can see that one rose has come over here and it's clashing. Now again over here, to be flexible about your design. After I've made these two flowers and these two roses, I can shift this and bring the rose somewhere in between these two. And it may not be exactly in between because there's very little space here, but there's a very nice space over here. So look for spaces like these. These look like, if I were to keep my finger here, you'll see this opening. This looks like a vase. So placing a floral shape in something that is an opening space like this, radiating outward, makes a lot of sense. Even if the flower is pointing towards it, it's fine. If you need to have a leaf coming from outside it, that is also fine. So I could either build this over here, or I could also have part of the vine come through this cavity and have a flower over here. Balance would pretty much be the same. All right. So this is what I mean. Oh, here's another thing, another opportunity. Now, if I make this flower coming over here, and I also have a flower coming over here, you see this repeating line
Hmm.
in quick succession. There's only a small vine that goes through. This might not be the best option because here it's like, again, a repeating line in the same design will attract far too much attention. So I'd rather not have this direction. I would rather have the flower come up, and in the opposing direction from this flower. So that is how you can come to a design decision in the composition that makes sense and it's fully justified.
Aditi, can you draw one of those drooping flowers also just to see how it fits in so we can
Yeah.
see?
Okay, before the drooping flower, I'll draw the leaf. So I'm making space over here for the flowers. Okay, here's another thing I've often seen. I prefer to always have the stem come straight down from underneath the flower and then turn into the main stem like this. If this is the flower, draw lines coming straight down from the center and then join the main stem. So if I need to, I can bring this line further over here this further down so that it does not look like a mistake, and then make the leaves like this. So the reason I'm filling this space up is so that I know exactly the kind of cavity that I have left for the drooping flowers. I'll draw a flower over here, a rose. And also somewhere over here. Okay, I'm making them here. I'm making this base for the buds as well, which we haven't drawn earlier. And now I have the option of making one of the drooping flowers. But with so many other florals, I think just another drop would look nice. Now for the rose vine also, we haven't thought about the stalk. You can make it a single line or you can make it a double line. Every line that you make will add something to the design. So in a composition, your first loyalty lies in making the composition look good, not necessarily make the flower or any of these elements accurate. So if your rose lands up looking like a peony or the peony lands up looking like a sunflower, but it is pretty, you can afford to do all sorts of masti around it. Okay, here's a second opportunity for the drooping flowers. And I'm just erasing some previous lines so I can redraw the structure. Notice how I have a 1, 2, 3, like an odd hexagon like vacant space over here. So I can consume all these spaces, empty spaces. See, this bit gives us a very nice form. And all the negative spaces are addressed. And maybe even over here, if it is done right. We could also have a leaf that we've not made for the drooping flowers. But we have one big leaf and these two leaves. So again, pause and ponder. Now, when you are making these flowers also, look at a nice radial pattern. When you're making the flower on top, don't make it come point downward. And as far as connecting all these are concerned, you can choose to not connect them also. This is, after all, a graphic print. So just draw these two lines coming towards the side and you get the point. Should I get it? Yes. Thank you. Let's see who's come. Come, sit down, sit.
Mama started doing this because like
Okay.
this is right.
Yeah, do it. Okay, so we're at 11:30. Do you think you guys can complete the print?
Yeah, but Aditi, you'll put up your thing now once you complete it.
I will, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll give an idea as to, you know.
Yeah. I'll
So
do.
now can you share the other picture, the individual elements that you have drawn, right? Can you share
Yeah,
a
yeah.
picture of that?
I'll send that now, and I'll send what I've
Yeah.
done so far also, so that
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, yeah, you know basically what the intention is. But then later in the afternoon, I'll complete it and send it across.
Sure. Perfect.
Okay. Okay,
Thanks,
Chal.
Aditi.
Now next Saturday we don't have class. We will have class again Saturday and Sunday, the weekend after that. So that's going to be 17th, 18th.
What are you doing on 17th and 18th?
17th, 18th we will proceed to more animals. So we'll do some furry animals on Saturday.
Okay.
And on Sunday we will do reptiles.
My husband's 70th birthday, so we're not here.
I love reptiles.
So your family is
So,
going on a picnic. So I'm gonna
both the
go there.
days.
So we're going Saturday, staying overnight. So we'll come back Sunday afternoon probably.
Okay. So Saturday, since our class is at 9:30,
I'll
maybe
see.
you can attend that and then
Yeah, I'll see if I can do that.
go. Okay. All right.
Chalo, bye everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye,
And
everyone.
Bye.
next
Bye,
Saturday is Bombay. Those of you who want to come to NMACC, please let me know. I'll be there by 11, so then we can meet up. Okay. Chalo. Bye.
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 Bye.